Hey, what's up, everybody? Week number 5 just around the corner, but before we do that, today's Monday, and we have a very little, a good size discussion that's a review. It's not a midterm, but it's just to kind of help take a step back and to remember what we've learned for the last four weeks. So that's going to be the focus. If you think of it like a piece of rope, world history, and each thread that makes that strong rope, if you unravel it, is different types of themes. So if you have a bunch of different themes like distribution and communities and what's another one? Networks of exchange and all these different ones. If you give even more, you could go into like belief systems and political structures, all these different things that you see in each area around the world, but are happening in a little different way, together form a strong, cohesive piece of rope that sort of brings everything together. So by themselves, they're interesting and they dissect, but together they really show what's happening in a society, or in our case, a world civilization. So that's what we're going to look at, is sort of these broad structures that we see in all these different communities around the world. And that's going to be the focus of this discussion today. Now, after that, there's a little sort of a survey just to see how you're doing, how things are. It helps me to see what's working, what's not working. And then tomorrow or today, it's all posted, but we're going to move into week number 6, which is looking at classical era. We're moving into the classical age and looking at the Empire of Persia, this massive big empire. And we're also going to look at how it develops into ancient Greece, the Greeks. So if you've seen the movie The 300 or other aspects of ancient Greece with wonderful Greek mythology, that's what we're looking at in this week number 6. Now, this week's not going to be nearly as packed with stuff of other discussions. It's going to be largely around my lecture and the reading in the textbook, and that's going to be the focus. So you're going to look at, first off, this Persian Empire, and then how really the Greek Empire comes out of it like a small appendage, a small section, a blip on the radar of this massive empire. And then that's what they focus on. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at east. They're looking east and how to sort of emulate this growth of this massive empire. It truly was magnificent. And that's what they're going to build off of. Now, after this, then you get the Roman Empire. And the Rome is, of course, going to emulate themselves off of the ancient Greek Empire. So, in a way, it goes all the way back to this Persian Empire. Because you got Persia, you got this Greek Empire, then you got this Roman Empire. And if you go back even further, that breaks off of all what was happening, what you've learned with Mesopotamia. So it all really does connect together. And also, don't forget Egypt with Alexandria when we get into Alexander the Great. But that's all weaves together. So as we finish off this week number 4, and how these last 4 weeks really show an ancient world themes coming out of different civilizations we're looking at, that's all now going to develop into the classical age. It's going to develop into this Persian Empire, and it's going to develop into this Roman Empire, this Greek Empire, and people like Philip, who creates this big empire, and then out of that is Alexander the Great, and he's going to spread so much that everyone's trying to emulate the Greeks, and that's called Hellenization. We're going to look into that. So how Hellenistic, or another fancy word for Greek culture, how that really spreads. So empires don't just spread with armies, they don't just spread with rule and force, but they spread culture as well. So Greek culture, Hellenization, spreads out of all this, and that's what we're going to end with at the end of this week. All right, so we have a lot of fun things to look at for week number 6, but don't forget this week right now, don't forget this last discussion that sums up everything you've learned for the last 4 weeks, and I look forward to reading that one, because that's really going to show and sit back everything you've learned before we get to the second half of this class. It's really going to be packed and really fun. So enjoy that, and talk to you soon. Be in touch. Email me if you have any questions.